In today's Leeds news, Weston Mckennie endless crisis. Leeds expected to cash in on Aaronson. Premier League Clubs Eye Sinisterra. And Adam Forshaw on his future. Morning, folks. Jer here. Friday, last video of the week on the 12th of May. Hope you've all had a really good week. A big game tomorrow at Ellen Road versus Newcastle. That could be a defining moment in Leeds United season. Not that there hasn't been like 20 defining moments in Leeds season already, but it's a huge one. Huge big game. Love to know people's thoughts on it. I'm thinking a sneaky draw. Maybe get a win against West Ham. Maybe draw against Spurs, and there's 5 points that might keep us up. Maybe might be clutching at straws here. But anyway, huge game. But this video, unfortunately, whereas normally it's talking about signings that probably won't end up at Leeds, this one seems to be about players who are likely to exit Leeds given the current circumstances that we find ourselves in. And we'll start this off by talking about Weston Mckennie. And according to Calcio Mercato, Leeds United are stuck in an endless crisis with Weston Mckennie. What they say on this is Leeds United situation with Weston Mckennie is clearly there's a really good player in there, but it hasn't worked out particularly well so far at Leeds. Mckennie joined Leeds in January and has made 17 appearances for the club so far, but his future is very much up in the air. Leeds are in a situation where, due to consistent manager changes and being in a situation where now the championship looks like a very real possibility, the likelihood of Leeds making the move permanent for Weston Mckennie is unlikely. Mckennie hasn't had a chance to really settle in given the amount of style changes and management changes, bearing in mind who he was bought to play under at the time. What they also say is that Juventus are in a bad situation as well. They just say basically that Juventus are in trouble, full stop, and that they need to recoup, or they want to get 34 million euro for Weston Mckennie, plus the 4.5 million euro in add-ons that was agreed with Leeds, but they need Leeds to stay in the Premier League to do that. Given his performances in the Premier League, they reckon that his value has dropped in price, and that if Leeds don't stay in the Premier League, that they might actually lose out on this, given the showings that he's put in the Premier League. The interest in Premier League clubs isn't as big as it was before, and then the valuation will be a different valuation as well. So there's this weird situation where if Leeds want to keep the player, they need to stay up. Juventus need Leeds to stay up in order to get the money that they want for the player. They clearly want to sell him, and they don't feel that if Leeds go down, that they will get that money for Weston Mckennie. So it's a weird one. I mean, I kind of feel sorry for Weston Mckennie because he's stuck in the middle of this. There's been a lot of stuff's gone on over the last couple of months about Weston Mckennie, and there's clearly a very good footballer in there. He's been played out of position for Leeds at times. You would still like him to do more than he's done. There's a question around conditioning as well, but that's been there with Weston for years and it hasn't stopped him. So it's an awful situation where he was brought into play under a manager under a certain style that's been changed pretty radically twice now since then, and he finds himself in a position where he's having to play as a defensive midfielder where he's not really a defensive midfielder, and he's just not. It's like asking right back to play left back. They can do a decent job there, but it's not. It's a specialist position. So yeah, I do have a small amount of sympathy for Weston Mckennie in this situation, but his future all up looks like to be in big question should Leeds get relegated from the Premier League. So hopefully for him, Leeds don't, but there'll be a lot of people at Leeds hoping that that's one of the pluses that comes out of Leeds going down, is that Mckennie deal won't go through. It's a lot of money. It's 34 million plus 4.5 million in bonuses. It would be the joint record signing for Leeds along with Jorginho Rutter. Might take a bit of pressure off Rutter though. Moving, let's talk about somebody else who looks like he possibly could be on the way out of Leeds. And again, this is a report from Calcio Mercato, and what they're saying is that Leeds may look to cash in on Brendan Aaronson. Now, they say that at the start of the article, but then they changed their mind by the end of it and they've reworded this. So basically what it says is that according to Calcio Mercato, Leeds look at Brendan Aaronson's future at the end of this season. They claim that the player is likely one of the players that will leave Leeds should Leeds get relegated. Leeds paid £25 million for Aaronson from Red Bull Salzburg in the summer. He started the season on fire. I like Aaronson. I think there's a really good player in there. He's just a bit slight, and I think a really good summer in the gym with Leeds would bulk him up a little bit and get him ready for a better season next year. But Kelton McArthur claimed that AC Milan were very interested in the player before Leeds signed him, and that they may be interested in the player again. Tyler Adams has also been mentioned as a player that AC Milan are interested in bringing in, so you could see that partnership move again together. But they've said that because Aaronson has signed a 5-year contract at Leeds, Leeds can just sit back and wait. Leeds don't have to sell the player, and Leeds can wait till a fee comes in that matches their valuation, or in a minimum, they can get back what they paid for the player as well. So there could be a very strong situation there where Leeds just don't have to sell. Leeds are not in a financial crisis. People keep talking about Leeds going down in a fire sale. Players on 18 months, 2 years in their contracts, Leeds may look to sell them. Other players that are on 4 or 5 year contracts, Leeds can just sit it out. They don't have to sell these players because they don't need to. They don't need to. And they'll have the parachute payments for the first year as well. So again, they don't really need to. So it's an interesting one. The more concerning one for me, but I'm split on this one, is Luis Sinisterra's future. And according to reports in Italy and Spain, plenty of top Premier League clubs have significant interest in Luis Sinisterra. Sinisterra has got 7 goals so far for Leeds this season. No assists, funnily enough, as a winger. In 22 games for Leeds, and they're saying that there are plenty of interest in the Premier League. The issue for Sinisterra this year has been his injuries. He's had consistent injuries all year that really hasn't allowed him to get a good run at this season. He still managed to play 22 games in all competitions. But reports said a £21 million signing for Leeds may be on the hit list of some top Premier League clubs. The report also names Willy Gnonto and Brendan Aaronson as 2 players that are likely to leave Leeds as the main 2 on top of Sinisterra, but then they also go on to name Robin Koch, Ilan Meslier, Tyler Adams, Jack Harrison, and Rodrigo as players that will probably look to leave Leeds in the summer should Leeds go down. The Sinisterra one is interesting because I always feel that the injuries that he's had in the Premier League this season would stop clubs, especially top clubs, gambling on him. Again, he's on a long enough contract. Is in his first year of that contract. Leeds don't have to sell. They don't want to unless they get a fee. Will clubs be willing to pay a fee as high as Leeds will look for, 21, 25 million pounds, if the player has had the injury concerns that he has had? And remember, he came into Leeds with a history of injuries as well and has continued that this season. No doubt there is an amazing footballer in there, and what he has done in fits and starts this year between injuries has been brilliant for Leeds. But yeah, I always kind of just feel that top clubs aren't going to pay that kind of money because players' injury, you know. So it's an interesting. And speaking of players who were injured, let's get on to our final story of the day, and it's Adam Forshaw. And he returned to the starting lineup against Manchester City last week and did really well. He played pretty well. One thing I would say about Adam Forshaw is he gives everything that he has when he does be on the pitch. He links the play up very well. He's a good footballer, but again, has had consistent injuries for Leeds over the last 3-4 seasons that he's been at Leeds. He is out of contract at the end of the season, and while there has been reports earlier on this year that the player may be considering retirement, the latest run after his latest injury setback may seem to have changed his mind. Leeds do have a 12-month extension option in Adam Forshaw's contract that they could activate. A couple of weeks ago, it was said that Leeds wouldn't be activating that deal and they would be looking at moving Adam Forshaw on at the end of the season. However, given Leeds' situation in the Premier League now and moving into the Championship, he may be a player Leeds will need to keep on. Leeds, other reports are saying that Leeds will, if they go down, will rely heavily on the youth players they've. First and foremost, I just want to help the team as much as I can, obviously. I want to do this for myself, for the club, and I want to remain in the Premier League. Absolutely love to stay here. Of course, I love it here. My family love it here. You know, I've got some really close friends here, players and staff now. So, you know, there's nothing more that I would wish for than to stay. Good guy, good player. Injuries have dogged his career at Leeds, which again is just seems to be a consistent thing with a lot of players recently. Um, Hopefully he's over the worst of it. Hopefully he can finish the season for Leeds. And if Leeds do decide to extend the contract by another year, a good preseason, injury-free, might set him up for a strong start to the season next year. He was very good at the start of the campaign for Leeds. Well, second campaign for Leeds when he did play. So fingers crossed for Forshaw. That's gonna be it, folks. As I said, massive game tomorrow, Newcastle. I'm finally heading over to a game this year, thank God. Um, Looking forward to seeing it and seeing, fingers crossed, Leeds get a strong result in that game. It'd be nice to get over and back in the same day and actually see a positive result. It's huge. It's absolutely huge. But again, as I said, love to see your thoughts on this and how Leeds have, how you think Leeds will get on this weekend or even the last three. On Monday for the news, possibly Sunday night on the Just Show. I think it's a late one on Sunday for a review of the Newcastle game as well. I might do some stuff when I'm over in Leeds as well if I get a chance. So I'll talk to you soon. Have a great weekend. Fingers crossed.